Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. I'm gonna go through all the big changes which are happening for this mid-season. So we have been absolutely bombarded with changes here. Let's go through them. So to begin with, Akshan is gaining some AP ratios. His passive damage is now going to scale with 60% AP ratio. His Q movement speed is also going to scale with 5% per 100 AP ratio. So, Callista also going to have some AP ratios. E damage now scales with 40% AP for first hit and 20% AP for subsequent spears. E slow now scales with 5% per 100 AP. Overall, what these changes are going to do is because new Ginsu's is going to have AP within it and going to be more of a AP on hit kind of item. A lot of these champions which did previously build Ginsu's are going to receive AP ratio buffs. For example, Kindred, well, she's the only one on this list who isn't actually a current Ginsu's user. It's probably going to be pushed towards Ginsu's. Is gaining AP ratio on the W. Now we're going to scale with 20%. And the E is now going to slow. E slow is now going to scale with 5% per 100 AP. Vayne, true damage is going to go. We're going to scale with 1.5% per 100 AP. This also just helps the current Rift Maker Titanic Vayne. Overall, these changes are pretty big. The Callista one, especially for like the new Ginsu's, which I'll cover in a second, combined with like Nash's, this is a huge AP ratio. That is a lot of damage if you're going a very heavy AP build. Of course, we're getting the new Snow Moon skins, Ari, Morgana, Varus. These will look really good. And then we have the changed Athene's Holy Grail. So this item is going to be a 2,300 gold cost, 30 ability power, 200 health, 15 ability haste, 125% base mana regen. And it's going to have a passive called Soul Siphon, which where damaging a champion grants a Soul Shard up to a maximum of 2. Healing or shielding an ally consumes with Soul Shards and restores 40 to 120 based on level health, and deals 40 to 210 magic damage per shard to the nearest enemy champion. Dissonance, which is like the Locket passive, where you give nearby allies stats, is gonna gain 3 ability power per 25% base mana regen. I think this is passive. This might only apply to the actual champion. It doesn't seem to know anywhere that it applies to allies, so we'll have to see. And the mythic passive is gonna grant all other legendaries 5 ability haste, which is one of the better stats to have as a mythic passive, as it's just quite a nice inherent thing to get. Youmuu's is going to be changed to a mythic. I'm just going to quickly give a brief rundown on this. So it's going to be similar to old Youmuu's, similar stat line, but when you move a lot and gain shards, you will gain 10 to 20 lethality, and it's now got the mythic passive where it grants all other legendaries 8 attack damage. Very nice. Duskblade is still going to be a mythic. It's just going to be changed so your abilities now deal up to an additional 15% damage based on the target's missing health. And when a champion which you've damaged dies within the last 3 seconds dies, you become untargetable. Everybody's favorite thing from non-structures for 1.5 seconds. And it's going to have the mythic passive where it grants legendary items 5 ability haste and 5 movement speed. Prowler's Claw is now no longer a mythic. It no longer has a dash either, and instead it's just going to be when you, after dashing, blinking, or exiting stealth, you're going to deal a bit more damage, less for range, and if you're a melee champion, it's going to slow the target. Remind you of old Duskblade by any chance? Yeah, this is very similar to it. So, Ginsu's, this is the big one. It's now a mythic item. It's going to have 30 attack damage, 30 ability power, similar to the old stat line, and 25% attack speed. This is similar to the very old stat line. The Wrath passive is going to apply magic damage to your on-hit. Your critical strike chance is converted into up to 200 more. It's going to have a ramping attack speed on it, like lethal. It's going to keep the every third attack applies your on-hit twice, and it's going to have the mythic passive where it grants legendary items 5% armor pen and 6% magic pen, which is a huge mythic passive. This is so big because this means you can basically just skip having an armor pen or a magic pen item. IE is going to have 70 AD, 20% critical strike chance, and 35% critical strike damage. Its specific passive is going to be 5 attack damage for each legendary item. I'm not going to lie, this item looks terrible. It looks very similar to current IE, just as a first option, and I'm not sold on this overall stat line for this price when we're going to see the value of the other mythics and other ADC items. Of course, 70 AD is still a lot, the critical strike chance is nice, but when you're gaining 35% critical strike damage for only 20% critical strike chance, that just feels kind of bad. Navori, of course, is now going to be a mythic item as well, like IE. It's going to be changed slightly, so you no longer need the 40% breakpoint to activate the non-ultimate ability cooldowns by 20% of the remaining cooldown. So, overall, nice buff there. Just going to make it a slight bit stronger and more of a rush option. Static Shiv is back. 45 attack damage, 25% attack speed, 20% critical strike chance. Energized will now is going to be a thing on this. It's going to have the passive where where electroshock your energized attacks fires chain lightning that applies 60 to 170 plus 50% bonus magic damage, increase up to 120 to 340 plus 100% AP against minions. So really good for wave clear. Also really good for champs which like weaving in a lot of AP within their build. Kind of like for where the AP buffs are going on these new on these 4 champions. Of course, there are other marksmen which can benefit from these massively. Things like Varus, I imagine, will be unbelievably overpowered. Shieldbow is gonna be changed to a no longer being a mythic. It's gonna keep the shield, but instead of gaining AD, you're gonna gain attack speed, which is gonna help a lot of these on-hit marksmen. Of course, it's still got a relatively decent stat line. But overall, it's a nice lifeline to have. Good for ADCs who want to survive assassin kind of burst. Gale Force is now going to have the damage on it scale with crit. It's also going to have its mythic passive changed to grant all other legendary items 5 attack damage. It's going to have 7% movement speed added on, lose 5 attack damage, and lose 5% attack speed. So overall, just a bit of a reshuffle of Gale Force. The mythic passive granting 5 AD is really nice for it. Kraken Slayer is now a legendary item. It's going to stay relatively similar. However, it's going to be magic damage instead of true. And it's going to have a ramp on it. So overall, quite nice for champs which like autoing a lot and one-hit damage and stuff like that. Has AP scaling on it as well. Kind of scared where this is all going. We're going to receive some tank buffs, right? Otherwise, tanks are going to be terrible. IRC is going to have AD added onto it. It's going to also increase in price. And it's going to stay relatively similar past that. Static Shiv. Not Static Shiv. What's the thing I'm looking for here? Shard. It's something shard. I can't remember off the top of my head. Is now going to be built from Longsword, which is really weird because it's been built from Dagger for a very long time. Storm Razor has changed. It's now going to no longer slow people, but grant you movement speed instead. 55 AD is nice to have on an item like this, and it's going to have AP scaling on it. LDR is now going to have 25 bonus physical and magic damage against champions with greater max health than you. And it's going to stay relatively similar past that. So that one's interesting. We're getting a Lifewell Pendant, which is 150 health, 20 armor, 100% base health regen. Chalice of Blessing is looking really strong. 200 health, 75% base mana regen. Harmony, gain 25% base health regen for every additional 25% base mana regen, which is really nice for champs like Sona, Soraka, people like that. Imperial Mandate is now a legendary, no longer a mythic. 55 ability power, 20 ability haste, and 100% base mana regen. Quite a nice stat line. And it's going to stay relatively similar past that from to old Mandate. Force of Nature is being nerfed really hard. It's no longer going to have the 25% magic damage reduction on it. Instead, it's going to grant you 30 magic resist and 10% increased movement speed, which is a really big nerf. It's really going to hurt the item, quite a significant one. Especially when it's now 10 stacks instead of 7, I believe it is at the moment. Moonstone is being changed. It's now going to give chain healing and shielding. Quite nice. Grants all of our legendary items 5 ability haste. This used to be really big on Moonstone, so I wouldn't be surprised if Moonstone is really good again. Radiant Virtue is being absolutely stomped into the ground. It's having its price reduced heavily, but the stat line's giga nerfed. The max health on the Guiding Light is also nerfed. The Transcendence heal is also nerfed. And the mythic passive is down by 25. Overall, this item is gonna really struggle compared to what it used to be. It's still a mythic as well, so we'll have to see where that lands. I think it's nicer for champs like Rel, Nautilus, like your tank supports, which can itemize like this. It was already good on a lot of these champions. I think it's just going to be even stronger on them. I think it may be a util option on certain tanks, but I really don't see this item being built anywhere near as much as it is at the moment. Sterk's Gauge is being massively buffed. It's now going to grant 25% size and 30% tenacity for 8 seconds, which is a lot. 30% tenacity is really valuable for fighters, especially. This is going to be big for like Riven, Aatrox, people, the champs which like building this item. Alawi even. Even Shroud is having its build path changed, so it's Locket. Fighter item buffs. Godrinker is going to receive 25 health on the legendary item on the mythic passive. The Stridebreaker is gaining 5 AD. And Hullbreaker is gaining some AD and movement speed. Overall, this combined with Sterx, combined with Triforce buffs, Aatrox with his kind of side lane split pushy build is looking really good now, especially since he just got buffed as well. Triforce, 200 gold cheaper, 5-8 more AD, 5 more attack speed. Really nice buff for a, I'd consider almost kind of sleeper item at the moment. It's actually really good. Divine Sundera is being nerfed pretty hard from 6 to 3% to 4 to 2%. I don't think it's being changed in any other way at a quick glance. Abyssal is being gutted. Rip Abyssal. It's been good for like half a season and now it's going to be in the ground again. Let's go. So it's losing the Eternity passive. It's also going to be losing a lot of max health. 2,400 gold this isn't a bad start line for 2,400 gold. I just think it's going to be very similar to Turbo Chem Tank, where you're not really going to see this item anywhere near as much. It's just a big nerf, but with Fawn also being nerfed, maybe we still do see this item a bit, so we'll have to see. But first up, 55 attack damage, 20% critical strike chance, so the same, gains some lifesteal, and Ingor, well above Engorge, something like that. Well above 50% health, gain an additional 10 to 40 attack damage, which is 10 times better than the shield. Because, like, whereas the shield is nice, don't get me wrong, it helps with survivability. If you're building this combined with shield bow, that's a lot of AD. 40 attack damage is a BF, like you're gaining 1,300 gold end of game just for being above 50% health. That's really, really generous for a passive on this item. I would value this heavily over the shield, definitely. And yeah, that makes it really good. Recurve Bow is now gonna have attacks apply 50 magic damage instead of physical damage, which is quite nice. And that's all the changes we've seen. Oh no, and Runen's changes. Okay, so Peck attacks now apply 30 magic damage on hit, which seems nuts for this item actually, and it's gonna stay relatively similar past that. The gold price is obviously gonna go up, but most of the champions can live with that, especially when they're gaining 30 magic damage on hit. Overall, we're once again gonna be in a marksman meta because these just seem overpowered. But we'll have to see what they do, whether they nerf them down, whether they buff tanks, whether they buff mages, because, I mean, tanks and mages, I would consider two of the, like, struggling classes. A lot of tanks have been artificially buffed. Don't get me wrong at the moment. Obviously, tanks are relatively strong because a lot of them have been buffed. But the itemization feels bad. Jack Show feels bad as an item. Heartsteel, like, feels nice to build, but is relatively bad. It is a just 800 health item. It doesn't give you any resist. It makes you really vulnerable to percentage max health. And Radiant is kind of the best in slot when Iceborne has armor, and in a lot of lanes you don't want that armor, so you'd want to avoid building that item. Overall, we'll have to see what they do. These are big changes and they will massively shake up the meta, and I'm glad we're seeing big changes because we are really in need of them. The game's pretty stale at the moment. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.